How do you feel great on vacation? Like really good? Easy. You go to Aruba. You'll spend your time relaxing on cool white sand beaches and floating in healing blue water. You'll immerse yourself in natural wonder and find your center on an island where things move at your speed. You won't just feel great, you'll feel relaxed, renewed, and ready for life. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your trip at aruba.com.
It's another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, episode 2460, and I'm Dr. Neal, your host of the show. Welcome back to another special Friday edition of Optimal Health Daily, where I answer your health questions related to fitness, diet and nutrition, and more. You send in the questions, and I answer them for you. Now, if you want to send in an audio question, come by oldpodcast.com/ask, or you can call in your question. The number is 161-I-LOVE-OHD. And of course, you can always email in your question. You can send those in to health@oldpodcast.com. All right, and with that, let's hear today's question and start optimizing your life. Today's question came via email. Virginia writes, "Hi, Dr. Neal. Recently, I saw a social media influencer talking about his results using the 30-30-30 method, meaning 30 grams of protein is consumed within 30 minutes of waking up, followed by 30 minutes of steady-state cardio. He claims to have lost overall body fat using this method. Is there any science grounded in this method?" Thank you so much for taking the time to send in your question, Virginia. There's nothing really wrong with the 30-30-30 method. In fact, it's a nice way to chunk this information into something that's very relatable and seemingly easy to follow. If this method gets people moving more and eating more nutritiously, I'm for it. But there are a couple of issues I have with it right off the bat. First, it's a bit too early to have any published studies on this exact 30-30-30 regimen. So, what I'll need to do is talk about research that relates to each individual part. For example, does eating 30 grams of protein immediately after waking help us in any way? Next, I have an issue with any claims about losing body fat as a direct result of following this method. As I'll explain, losing body fat is a bit more complicated than following a regimen like this. Trust me, I wish losing body fat was that simple. So, let's get to it. What is the 30-30-30 method exactly? As you mentioned, Virginia, this method is about consuming 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking from sleep and then performing 30 minutes of low-intensity cardiovascular activity. So, here's what it might look like in reality. Someone wakes up at 6 a.m. They consume 30 grams of protein by 6:30 a.m. Then they go for a 30-minute walk. Boom, you're done. So when we think of the 30-30-30 method like this, again, there's nothing wrong with it. Eating soon after waking? Good. Starting off your day with a protein-rich meal? Good. Going for a 30-minute walk? Good. Where we can start to go off track a bit is if, say, we feel full after only consuming 15 grams of protein. But since the 30-30-30 method says we need 30 grams, double what we just ate, then we may force ourselves to overeat or start to hyper-obsess about our protein intake. Plus, 30 grams of protein consumed all at once, especially without any carbohydrate, may not get absorbed by the body as well as we might hope. As a result, this may actually interfere with the body's ability to burn fat. In fact, after exercise, especially after some strength training, our bodies are actually primed to absorb more protein. I'm not sure we can say the same when we first wake up in the morning. Now, related to this idea of forcing ourselves to eat, for me, I'm not super hungry within the first 30 minutes of waking up. So for me, eating 30 grams of protein, not to mention some carbohydrate with it and some water, of course, is a lot for me. I will definitely feel uncomfortable for most of the morning if I force myself to eat like that. So what about the 30 minutes of light cardiovascular activity? There's nothing magical about 30 minutes of light cardiovascular activity that's going to help us burn fat. First, the recommendation to keep the cardiovascular activity at a lower intensity is a good idea when you've just consumed 30 grams of protein. This is because protein takes longer to digest than carbohydrates. So protein will sit in your gut longer than, let's say, a banana would. If you exercise at a moderate to high intensity after eating a high protein meal, this may lead to some gastrointestinal upset. I can definitely agree, though, that consistently walking for 30 minutes most days of the week will definitely help with fat loss. It's just that to help with fat loss, we also need to consume fewer calories throughout the day consistently too. And we're forgetting that strength training has been found to help the body hang on to muscle while we're trying to lose body fat. But the 30-30-30 method doesn't emphasize strength training. At least it doesn't in its title. Now, to maintain body weight, the physical activity guidelines for Americans recommend 200 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity each week. So what's the difference between low intensity and moderate intensity activity? Because remember, the 30-30-30 method says focus on low intensity cardio after consuming your protein-rich meal. Believe it or not, walking could count as both low intensity and moderate intensity. How is that possible? Well, intensity depends on maybe how fast you're walking, or whether you're walking uphill or downhill, or even how long you're walking for. Here's the general rule when it comes to low intensity exercise. If you have enough oxygen in your lungs to sing while you're performing the activity, it's low intensity. So imagine you're walking along, and if you could sing a song out loud, it's low intensity. If you couldn't sing, but could hold a conversation, it's moderate intensity. So the 30-30-30 method is saying we should keep the intensity of our activity at the I can still sing out loud level. Now, what if weight loss is our goal? What do the guidelines say about activity? If weight loss is the goal, the physical activity guidelines for Americans change to 225 to 420 minutes per week of moderate intensity physical activity. So, what then really helps with fat loss? There's nothing inherently perfect about the 30-30-30 method that's going to guarantee fat loss. It really comes down to consuming fewer calories consistently and incorporating some cardiovascular activity and some strength training consistently. Remember, the body's usual response is to hang on to fat, especially when we cut down our calories. It takes time to convince the body to release that fat and burn it for energy. Now, did I mention the importance of consistency yet? Being consistent is what will convince the body that you're serious about losing body fat. So, have patience, follow really these three general ideas: cutting calories, cardiovascular activity, and strength training, and the body fat will eventually come off. When you're hiring, it feels amazing to finally close out a job search. But what if you could get rid of the search and just match? You can with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it filters out incompatible applicants. So when you're hiring, the process is much faster and you only have to consider applicants that are already likely to be a great fit. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/health. Just go to Indeed.com/health right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/health. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you again for taking the time to send in your question, Virginia. And if you want your question answered right here on the show and get a copy of our Optimal Living Daily Workbook for doing so, send one in. You can email your question to health@oldpodcast.com, or if you want your voice played on the show, come by oldpodcast.com/ask. You can record straight from your computer's microphone It's really easy. You can even play back your message and do retakes before sending it in, or you can do it the old-fashioned way and call in your question. The number is 1-61-I-LOVE-OHD. That's 1-614-568-3643. All right, that'll do it for today. I hope you have a great start to your weekend, and I'll see you back here tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.